Hello, this is Tony with Samwell Hydro Excavation. One guy with one truck and cannot afford the expensive repair shops. So I kind of wanted to go over a product that we ran across that saved us a lot of money. We wanted a wireless remote control, and all this truck had was a wired one. So it had a long wire with a box on it. Ended up tripping over it, getting it caught up in our other hoses and things like that. So I mean, it was really an inconvenience. So we ended up stumbling across on the internet. We stumbled across this. It's called Newtry. And the model number is the model number is a F21-E1b. So basically this is what it looks like. It's got a few buttons on it. You got a stop button, a start button, you got an up and down, you got an east and west, and a north and south. So basically what this thing does is it will operate the different functions of our truck. Well, we actually called the company that built the truck and some of their suppliers to find out, you know, what could we get for this so that we could go wireless. Well, they had one, but it ended up costing, it was going to cost us over $4,000 to get it. And we just thought, well, that's just kind of crazy. So we ended up doing some research, looked over on the internet, looked around, and we discovered this Newtry wireless remote. It's called a crane remote, and the model's an F21-E1b, which we'll put a link to it in the comments. Kind of want to just go over and kind of show you what it does. It's kind of very unique. Get this boom unlatched, and that way we can play around with it a little bit here. So anyway, on this remote, you're going to have a power switch, and basically the way we have it wired, we have a toggle switch on here for the radio boom on, which would be this one right here. So it is on at this point. So we're going to take this remote, turn it on, and then we can use these functions. So here we are, going to raise the boom up. Can raise the boom up with it. Then we're going to hit the down button, and those functions work just fine. And then we're going to go east and west, so we can go that way, and we can go that way. And then what we can do also is we can telescopic the boom in and out. So if you look up here at this knuckle, it is coming out. So we can move the boom out, or we can move the boom in. Now there is a suction motor on this truck, and so the way I have this wired, which I'll go through the wiring and how we wired it here in just a second, but I can hold my start switch. See, my vacuum relief, which is this toggle switch right here, and this light, it is on right now. So that has the engine and the suction. It has the engine at low idle and the suction off right now. So if I hold this button, this start button, and then I flick this switch off, I still have it activated. So the way I have mine wired is I can let off of this, and that activates my suction on my pony motor. As you can hear the suction coming through. Now I can hit this again, and that shuts it off. And it gives me time. I can keep this held. It gives me time to come over here and flick the main switch back on. So that's the functions of it. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn this motor off for now. And I just kind of want to go over basically how we ended up wiring this thing. So you don't get a whole lot of details on how to wire this thing. And maybe I probably should have done a video while we were doing it, but I kind of wanted to hook it up and test it, and before I really gave much of a review on it. But you have a black and a brown wire, and on your black and your brown wire on this particular unit, the black wire is your power wire and your brown wire is your ground wire. Then you have an orange wire, which is called your trigger wire. So what that does is that triggers the circuit board for all the buttons to work. So it needs to be wired either with the black positive wire. That's how we did it. That way it's positive all the time that switch is on. Or you can wire it to another switch or a keyed source. That's really your choice. But that's a positive 12 volt wire that will trigger the different mechanisms to work. So you have a yellow wire, which is your up, and a green wire, which is your down. And then you have a blue wire, which is your east, and you have a purple wire, which is your west. And then you have a gray wire, which is your south, and a white wire, which is your north. So then I want to get to the pink and red. So as I showed you on mine, I have mine to where I can knock my vacuum relief on and off by the press of a switch. Now, I could have done this one of two ways. I ended up using the pink wire because that way it's called a start wire. So when I have my finger pressed on that start button or that green button or that on button, it's only powered when I have it pushed. When I let off of it, the power's off of it. And that's kind of the way I wanted mine wired, but I could have used the red, which meant that if I pushed with the red wire hooked up for my vacuum relief, I could have pushed the green button, had it deactivated, but in order to activate it again, I would have needed to shut the red switch off, but that would have gotten rid of all of my functions as far as your up and down, east and west, and north south. So I really didn't want to have to mess with that. I'm kind of a little bit faster pace what we do, so I didn't want to have an extra step. So that's kind of the way we did ours. But you have a pink or a red wire for your activating and deactivating, like motors or starters or things like that. So it's a very, very nice, sleek, very user-friendly once you figure out the wiring. I searched the internet for a couple nights straight while laying in bed trying to figure out the wiring, and there's not a whole lot of detail on it, so I kind of wanted to make this video to make it a little bit easier on somebody else. And then back to the pricing. I mean, this thing was only like around $100. So again, we were going to have about over $4,000 in the one from the factory, versus this one was about $100. Now I want to go over to this. This is the control box, and this is just where we wanted to mount it, make it kind of easy for reception, and I mean it's really kind of a nice setup. Now the only thing we did kind of to foolproof it, if you look at the top of it, you'll see kind of a little bit of clear silicone. We ended up taking the lid off of it because we had read some complaints online about that they got wet. So we ended up running a bead of silicone around that. It has an O-ring in it, but we went ahead and run the silicone too, just to kind of extra assurance that it won't get wet. Now, on the hookup, we did a couple things too that anybody should do if it's going to be out in the weather. This, by the way, this is the silicone that we used, Silicone Max by DAP, and I'll have a link to that also in the comments. And then we use these what they call heat shrink connectors. So basically, you crimp your wires, and you end up crimping about 1/4 inch of your wires, and then you crimp them in on each side with a crimp tool, which this is the crimp tool. It is a Vactor, which they do not make anymore. Klein bought them out, but I've had this for years. It's been a good one. I will put a link also in for the Klein tool that is the compatible one to it, but Klein bought them out quite a few years ago. And then I will also put a link in for these heat shrink. Because what that does is once you heat shrink these, that also weatherproofs the wire connection. There's like a little bit of a gel in there also, and then you heat them down with a lighter or a heat gun. I use a lighter, and just heat them down to where they shrink around the wire, and then you're good. So basically, if you've got any questions, feel free to comment, ask. I'll do what I can to help anybody. I mean, again, I'm one guy, one truck, and I can't afford the expensive repair shops. So thanks for watching my video. Make sure you hit subscribe because it helps out. Thank you.